In the heart of Lekki Phase 1, where the wealthy displayed their success like peacocks showing feathers, lived a young man named Chukwudi Okafor, though everyone knew him as Chuks the Blessed. At 25, Chuks had everything a modern Nigerian youth could dream of. He was a social media influencer with over 5 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. His content was simple but addictive, showing off his luxury lifestyle, designer clothes, exotic cars, and exclusive parties. Brands fought to sponsor him. His catchphrase, "No wahala, just vibes," was repeated by teenagers across Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. He lived in a 3-bedroom apartment that cost more per year than most Nigerians earned in a decade, drove a customized Mercedes G-Wagon, and had never known a day of real struggle in his entire life. Chuks came from old money. His grandfather had been an oil magnate, his father a successful businessman who had multiplied the family wealth through real estate and imports. From birth, Chuks had been wrapped in privilege like a baby in the finest Ankara fabric. He attended the best schools, wore the latest fashion, traveled to Dubai, London, and New York as casually as others took Danfo buses across Lagos. When other young people were hustling for their first income, Chuks was already living in abundance. His social media empire was built not on talent or hard work, but on showing off what he had been given. Yet, he believed he deserved it all. He saw his followers as fans and everyone else as beneath him. When people criticized him online, calling him a spoiled rich kid, he would laugh and post another video of himself spending money, captioning it, "Hate me or love me, my account no day empty." One humid Saturday evening, Chuks was preparing for his biggest content yet. He had rented out an entire beach in Elagushi for a party he called the Festival of Excess. 500 influencers, celebrities, and socialites were invited. There would be fireworks, celebrity performances, endless food and drinks, all captured on camera for his millions of followers. Chuks stood in front of his mirror, admiring his outfit, a white agbada with gold embroidery that cost 800,000 naira. His jewelry alone could feed a family for years. As he posed for selfies, his phone rang. It was his father. "Chukwudi, we need to talk. Something has happened. Come to the house immediately." The tone was strange, urgent, not like his father at all. But Chuks looked at the time. His party was starting in 2 hours. "Daddy, I have an event. Can it wait until tomorrow?" There was a long silence. "If you do not come now, there may be no tomorrow as you know it." Then the line went dead. Something in his father's voice made Chuks pause. Against his better judgment, he got into his G-Wagon and drove to the family mansion in Banana Island. When he arrived, the house felt different, heavy with a tension he had never experienced. His father sat in the study, looking older than Chuks had ever seen him, his mother beside him with red eyes from crying, and his 2 younger sisters looked terrified. "Sit down, Chukwudi," his father said. What followed was a nightmare dressed in words. The family business had collapsed. A combination of bad investments, massive fraud by trusted partners, and government seizures due to some properties being built on disputed land had destroyed everything. But worse, far worse, was what came next. His father had borrowed heavily from dangerous people to try to save the business. Those loans were now due, and they could not pay. Everything would be seized. The house, the cars, the bank accounts, all of it. They had 1 week before the creditors came. His father's hands shook as he spoke. "We will have to start over with nothing. Less than nothing. We owe more than we own." Chuks felt the room spinning. This could not be real. This was Nigeria, where old money stayed old money, where families like his did not fall. "What about our savings? Our investments abroad? Grandfather's properties?" His father shook his head. "All gone or seized. I made terrible decisions, trusted the wrong people, and now we pay the price. You need to prepare yourself. The life you know ends this week." Chuks stood up, his heart pounding. No, this is impossible. We will fight this. We will find a way." But even as he spoke, he saw the truth in his parents' eyes. It was over. He left the house in a daze and drove back to his apartment, but he could not bring himself to go to the party. He posted a story saying he was sick and stayed home, staring at the walls, trying to process that his entire world was crumbling. The next week moved like a horrible dream. Men in suits came and put stickers on everything of value. The cars were driven away. The bank accounts were frozen. Chuks watched his family home, where he had spent his childhood, get locked up with chains. His father aged 10 years and 7 days. They moved into his father's friend's small 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere, all 5 of them cramped together, a far cry from their mansion. Chuks tried to maintain appearances on social media, posting old content, but people began to notice. Where were the new cars? The fresh outfits? The parties? Gossip blogs started circulating rumors. Chuks the Blessed going broke. Sources say the Okafor family lost everything. At first, Chuks denied it angrily, but as days passed and he could not post new luxury content, the truth became obvious. Then the followers began to leave. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands per day. Brands canceled their contracts. His comments section, once full of praise and admiration, became a graveyard of mockery. Where is your Benz now? No wahala, just poverty. From Lekki to Surulere, what a downgrade. Chuks felt each comment like a knife. These were people who had claimed to love him, to support him, now dancing on his downfall like it was entertainment. His phone became a device of torture. He stopped posting entirely. In 2 months, his 5 million followers had dropped to 300,000, and those who remained seemed to stay only to watch him suffer. The influencer who had never known struggle now could not afford data to check his dying social media accounts. But the real education came when Chuks had to find work. For the first time in his life, he needed a job. He had no degree, having dropped out of university to focus on influencing. He had no skills beyond taking photos and making videos of luxury. He went from office to office, applying for anything, but the moment employers Googled his name and saw his old lifestyle content, they dismissed him as unserious. You are that rich boy who shows off online. What do you know about real work? One manager said to his face, social media is not a real job. Maybe now you will learn what real life is like. Rejection after rejection. Chuks, who had never been told no in his life, heard it 50 times a day. The family struggled to eat. His mother, who had never cooked because they always had chefs, now learned to make simple meals with whatever little money they could gather. His sisters, who had attended expensive private schools, were enrolled in public schools where they were bullied for being the fallen rich kids. His father barely spoke anymore, carrying the weight of his failures like stones on his back. Chuks hit his lowest point 3 months into their new reality. He was walking through Balogun Market, trying to sell his last piece of expensive jewelry to get money for his mother's medication, when he ran into some of his old influencer friends. They were shooting content, laughing, wearing designer clothes, living the life he used to live. When they saw him, their faces changed. It was not pity, it was worse. It was the look you give to a ghost, to someone who used to exist but no longer mattered. Chuks, guy, what happened to you? You look so different. He was wearing old clothes now, had not had a haircut in months, had lost weight from irregular eating. He tried to smile, to maintain some dignity. Just going through some things. You know how it is. They nodded but could not get away fast enough. As they walked away, he heard one of them say, "Thank God that is not me." Can you imagine falling off like that? Their laughter echoed in the market, and Chuks felt something break inside him. That night, sitting in the small room he shared with his father, Chuks cried for the first time since childhood. Not for the money or the followers or the lifestyle. He cried because he realized he had wasted his entire life. He had never built anything real, never learned anything useful, never developed character or skills or relationships that mattered. He had been a hollow shell covered in gold, and now that the gold was gone, there was nothing underneath. His father, hearing him cry, came and sat beside him. For a long time, neither spoke. Then his father said something Chuks would never forget. "My son, I failed you. I gave you everything except the tools to build something yourself. I made you dependent on wealth instead of teaching you to create it. This fall is my fault, but what you do now, that is your choice. Something shifted in Chuks that night. The next morning, he woke up early and started walking through Lagos, really seeing it for the first time. He saw the pepper sellers at dawn, the mechanics opening their shops, the bus drivers hustling for passengers, the students heading to school, the security guards finishing night shifts. He saw the real Lagos, the hustling Lagos, the surviving Lagos, the Lagos he had ignored his entire life while living in his bubble of privilege. He stopped at a small phone repair shop in Yaba and asked the owner, an older man named Malam Ibrahim, if he could learn the trade. Malam Ibrahim looked at him suspiciously. Are you not that influencer boy? The one who fell from grace? Chuks nodded, shame burning his face. That was me, but now I need to learn something real. Please, I will work for free. Just teach me. Malam Ibrahim studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but there are no shortcuts here. You will start from the bottom, and I will treat you like any apprentice. Can you handle that? Chuks nodded. I have to. The next 6 months were the hardest of Chuks' life. He woke at 5 in the morning, trekked to Yaba because he had no transport money, and worked until 8 at night. His hands, which had only known designer steering wheels and luxury phones, now knew calluses and cuts from repair tools. Malam Ibrahim was a harsh teacher, quick to point out mistakes, slow to give praise. But he was fair, and more importantly, he was wise. He taught Chuks not just how to repair phones, but how to interact with customers, how to solve problems, how to be humble, how to build trust. Chuks met people from all walks of life. University students with cracked screens, market women with cheap phones that meant the world to them, businessmen with expensive devices. He learned that everyone's problem mattered, regardless of the price of their phone. He learned patience, perseverance, and the satisfaction of fixing something with his own hands. During this time, Chuks completely abandoned social media. His accounts went dormant. The internet moved on, as it always does, finding new people to worship and new people to destroy. But something interesting began to happen. Some of his old customers at the repair shop recognized him. At first, they would snicker or make comments. Chuks the Blessed now repairs phones. How the mighty have fallen. But Chuks would smile, acknowledge it, and focus on his work. His humility surprised them. His willingness to laugh at himself disarmed them. Slowly, their mockery turned to curiosity, then to respect. One customer, a university student, asked if she could record him talking about his fall. Chuks agreed. The video went viral, not because it was glamorous, but because it was real. A fallen influencer, admitting his mistakes, talking about learning real skills, showing his cut hands and humble circumstances. Within a week, the video had 5 million views. But here is where the story takes its unexpected turn. The attention that came this time was different from before. People were not following Chuks for his luxury, but for his transformation. Comments poured in. This is the content we need. From showing off to showing growth. Real life lessons here. Brands began reaching out, but not for luxury endorsements. They wanted him to promote skill acquisition programs, educational platforms, vocational training. His follower count began climbing again, but this time it was built on substance. Chuks was terrified of falling into old patterns, so he made a decision. He would use the platform differently. Every video now showed his work at the repair shop, learning sessions with Malam Ibrahim, visits to other young people learning trades, honest conversations about wealth, poverty, and character. His father joined in, making videos about his business failures and the lessons he learned too late. His content became a movement. Within a year, he had his 5 million followers back, but they were different followers, engaged followers, people who wanted to learn and grow, not just watch luxury porn. Chuks used his renewed platform to launch an organization called From Grace to Grass to Growth, helping young people from privileged backgrounds learn real skills and helping underprivileged youth access training. He partnered with Malam Ibrahim to create a chain of training centers across Lagos. Money began flowing again, but Chuks handled it differently now. He lived modestly, invested wisely, saved aggressively. His family slowly rebuilt, not to their former heights, but to a sustainable, dignified level. His father started a small consulting firm, using his painful lessons to advise other business owners. His mother became an advocate for financial literacy. His sisters excelled in their public schools and developed empathy and resilience they never would have learned in private school bubbles. 2 years after his fall, Chuks was invited to speak at a youth conference in Abuja. As he stood on stage, looking at thousands of young faces, he thought about the journey. From Lekki luxury to Surulere struggle to rebuilding with purpose. From 5 million followers who loved his money to 300,000 who mocked his poverty to 5 million who respected his growth. As he began his speech, he said, "My name is Chukwudi Okafor, and I am the influencer who lost everything, including my mind, but found something more valuable, myself." The applause was deafening. But the real twist, the one Chuks would only discover that evening, was yet to come. After his speech, an elderly woman approached him backstage. She was dressed simply, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. "Young man, do you remember me?" Chuks looked closely and froze. She was the accountant who had worked for his father years ago, the one his father had fired just before everything collapsed, accusing her of suspicious activities. She smiled at his recognition. "Yes, I am Mrs. Adime. Your father blamed me for things I did not do when his business started failing. He made me a scapegoat to hide his own mistakes." Chuks felt his stomach turn. "I am so sorry for what my father did to you." She raised her hand. "I did not come for an apology. I came to tell you something. When your father fired me, I was angry. I knew the real criminals, his partners who were stealing from him, but he refused to listen to me because I was just a woman, just an employee. I had evidence of their fraud, but in my anger, I kept it to myself, thinking he deserved whatever came to him." Chuks felt cold. "So you could have saved us." Mrs. Adime nodded slowly. "I could have stopped some of the damage, not all, but some. But I chose revenge over righteousness. I let my bitterness keep me silent, and your entire family suffered for it. I watched your fall on social media, and at first, I felt justified. Rich people getting their comeuppance. But then I saw your transformation, your humility, your growth, and I realized I had become the very thing I hated, someone who lets others suffer because of pride." Tears rolled down her face. "I have lived with this guilt for 2 years, watching you and your family struggle when I could have helped. I am here to confess and to beg your forgiveness. I brought the evidence to the police last month. Some of your father's partners have been arrested. You will not get everything back, but you will get some justice and some restitution." Chuck stood there, overwhelmed by emotions he could not name. Anger at this woman who had let them suffer. Gratitude that she finally came forward. Sadness at how bitterness destroys people. But mostly, he felt something unexpected. Peace. He looked at Mrs. Adime and said, "I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I have learned that we all make terrible decisions when we are hurt, prideful, or scared. My father made terrible decisions. You made a terrible decision. I made terrible decisions by wasting my life on vanity. We are all broken people, trying to become better. Thank you for finally doing the right thing." Mrs. Adime collapsed in tears, and Chuks embraced her as the full weight of the story's irony hit him. His family's fall, which seemed like pure tragedy, had been partially caused by someone else's choice to withhold help out of bitterness. Yet that fall had transformed him into someone he never would have become in comfort. The grace that seemed lost had actually been the poison. The grass he fell to had been the medicine. And now, standing on the other side of suffering, he was more blessed than he had ever been in his mansion. That night, Chuck sat with his family and told them about Mrs. Adime. His father wept, not with anger at her, but with remorse for how he had treated her and driven her to that choice. They prayed together, something they had never done in their days of wealth. The next day, Chuks posted a video titled, "The Full Story, How My Fall Saved My Life," where he shared everything, the privilege, the crash, the learning, the rebuilding, and even Mrs. Adimi's revelation. He talked about how his family was about to receive some restitution, but more importantly, he talked about the restitution that had already happened in their characters, their relationships, their purpose. The video broke the internet, becoming one of the most shared pieces of content in Nigerian social media history. 6 months later, the Okafor family had recovered financially to a modest middle-class level. They moved into a comfortable 3-bedroom flat in Ikeja, nothing like their Banana Island mansion, but earned through real work and managed with wisdom. Chuks' phone repair and training business was thriving. His social media content continued to inspire millions. His sisters had become advocates for humility and education in their schools. His mother volunteered at financial literacy programs. His father had written a book about business failure and recovery that became required reading in several universities. They were not as rich as before, but they were richer in ways that mattered. And Chuks, now 28, would often stand in his modest living room and think about the scared, shallow 25-year-old who thought life was over when the money disappeared. He would smile at how wrong he had been. Life had not ended, it had finally begun. The moral woven through Chuks' story spread across Nigeria like ripples in water. Grace is not always a blessing and grass is not always a curse. Sometimes you have to fall to learn how to stand. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what truly matters. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could happen for you. And sometimes, the people who watch you fall are the same people who will watch you rise. But the difference is that when you rise from rock bottom through your own effort, your own growth, your own character, no one can take that away from you, not even yourself. Chuks the Blessed had lost his shadow of fake success and found his substance of real value. And in the end, that was the greatest content he ever created, not for social media, but for life itself.